Hey guys, this is now part 2 of the Video Archive VHS collection overview. And this time we're focusing on category B. So that means any of the titles that start with a B. Which, that's pretty evident. So, without further ado, let's get going. Now this one, this is kind of an interesting movie here. We have Babes in Toyland. I think this was a mid-1980s TV movie starring Keanu Reeves before Bill and Ted. So at the time this movie came out, he was an unknown actor. But then years later, after the Bill and Ted movies got popular, Orion released it on video in hopes to capitalize on its popularity. So I feel bad for those who rented or bought this movie because he was in it. Because this movie is horrible. But anyway. October 10th, 1993. Or maybe it's not so much it's horrible, it's just not very good. We'll leave it at that. It's just not very good. Definitely kind of a low-budget movie. And somehow that movie got a theatrical release overseas. And I don't know why. That movie doesn't really seem like something you'd put in theaters. Maybe on TV. It looks like some low-budget production. Alright, the next one here is Bad Boys. Now here's a good movie. This time around. And the sequels are pretty good too, actually. I think it's the 30th week of 2003, I believe. If you can... Come on, picky bastard. Focus. There we go. Alright, the next one here is the 2005 remake of Bad News Bears, starring Billy Bob Thornton. Pretty decent remake, but the original is a better movie, personally. But the remake's alright. November 28th, 2005. Now here's one where I've actually never heard of this movie until I found it, but this is kind of a rare tape as I've never seen it before, never heard it, haven't seen it since, and I sure don't hear anyone talking about this movie. The Ballad of Jack and Rose. An IFC Films, at least distributed film, but the video release was put out by MGM. July 17th, 2005. And this one here is an all-time classic for many people, especially when discussing superhero movies. We have Batman, the 1989 film starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. What I find absolutely hilarious with this one is that Jack Nicholson gets top billing, even though he plays Joker, who's technically not the main character. So it's very similar to the situation with Superman, where the likes of Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando got top billing, while Christopher Reeve, who plays the star and title character, is not given top billing. But to be fair, for both these movies, Christopher Reeve wasn't that popular at the time, and Michael Keaton was less bankable than Jack Nicholson. Alright, this one says August 29th, 1989, but my camera is not... There we go. August 29th, 1989. Now, this one might not interest too many of my viewers, but it was actually a pretty successful film when it originally came out. we have Beaches, starring Bette Midler. Speaking of which, recently, Hocus Pocus 2 came out, and she stars in that film, so Brian's schedule, right? But really, it's just a mere coincidence. I just looked out and said, hey. Not November. January 11th, 1991. I really like this blue label, by the way. It's just very, I don't know, just kind of pops out at you. This one, probably not considered an all-time classic to a lot of people, but if you grew up watching a lot of 90s movies like I did, this is very much something you'd have seen on TV quite a lot. That is Beethoven. What's notable about this movie is that, well, actually, no, he's just an executive producer, not director. But Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters, was an executive producer on the film. And also stars Charles Grodin as well, the late Charles Grodin. So, although a lot of Ivan Reitman's later movies weren't particularly great, he is a pretty legendary filmmaker, and Charles Grodin's a pretty legendary actor, too. The second week of 2003. Now this is actually a movie I never heard of before I found it. But I picked it up because I thought it was kind of an interesting tape, which I'll get into in a moment. And it's a copy of the movie Beloved, starring Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover. Now, what makes this tape fairly interesting is that this one was a full rental from Rogers Video, which is a chain that did not have any locations in the United States. I think they were a Canadian-only video store chain. And this copy is from Canada, as it does have a cartridge number rather than a manufacture date. It's number 2 out of 4 from the specific lot this tape came from. Now, this one, typically I show a tape at a time. This time I'm going to do 2. We have Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2. I don't have the third one as of yet. And typically, I typically don't always go for all the sequels. It just depends on the series. I'm not sure if they ever did a box set on VHS for all the films. And also the third Beverly Hills Cop I never cared for. The 21st week of 1989. And then here's the second movie. Pretty successful when it originally came out, but critics weren't too pleased by it. But a fun fact about this movie is that it was directed by Tony Scott, who also directed the original Top Gun. And it's also produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, who not only produced the first movie, but they also produced Top Gun. And on the topic of Top Gun, Jerry Bruckheimer also served as a producer on its sequel, Top Gun Maverick. And in fact, originally, Tony Scott was set to direct Top Gun Maverick, but he passed away, I think it was back in 2012. And the movie ended up falling into development hell for a while. May 23rd, 1990. And the 23rd week of 1990. Now, this next one is actually based on a popular TV show from the 1960s. However, the film itself never managed to catch on with audiences. And that is Bewitched, starring Nicole Kidman and Will Ferrell. Which, not surprising, both were pretty popular actors back in the early 2000s, but the film didn't click with audiences. In fact, 2005 in general was a pretty rough year for Sony Pictures. Most of their films failed to break even. I think the only two movies, to my knowledge, that were any big hits for the studio were Are We There Yet and Hitch, which came out within the first 2 months of the year. September 28th, 2005. Now this next one is an all-time 80s classic. That is Big. In fact, Tom Hanks was pretty big during the mid to late 80s. He had Splash, he had this movie, he also had Turner and Hooch. So yeah, he was running high during that period of time. Flip this real quick. Okay, there's a couple of print dates on this tape. April 10th, 2001 and August 7th, 2001. Not sure if this is a movie that a lot of people have heard of, but it has a pretty good cast for the time. The Big Chill. A lot of big names in this movie. The 13th week of 1986. Now, this is often considered one of Adam Sandler's better movies, and I would personally agree. Big Daddy. The 40th week of 2000. Now, this, I believe, is one of John Wayne's earlier movies. That is The Big Trail. Yeah, as you can see, if I can find the copyright. Yeah, 1930. Pretty early for a John Wayne movie. Now we have, I don't have the first movie for some reason, and I've yet to find a copy of the third one. But I do have the second movie in the series, Blade 2. with a really cool box. I like this matte finish with little bits of gloss here and there. It's pretty nice packaging. August 8th, 2002. We now have a film that was produced but not directed by Sam Raimi. That is Boogeyman, which I believe is was the second Ghost House production after The Grudge came out the year prior. February 27th, 2006. Okay, this is a tape that normally I would not pick up, but the reason I picked it up was because there's something very interesting about it. Born Free. I never heard of this movie until I found this tape at a Goodwill once. This tape was actually sold through the Avon catalog, as evident from the stamp, and also the distinct label. July 4th, 1996. It's also evident by this FSC stock number here at the bottom. Now this movie is actually, I guess you could consider it a cult classic, but it's based on a popular comic strip. A boy named Charlie Brown. I actually like this watercolor background on the cover. The 10th week of 1999. Now this one is a movie directed by what was once a popular film actor, but he kind of fell out of the favor of his fans many years ago. As Braveheart. Now this copy was actually sold through Columbia House, as evident from this CHC stamp at the bottom of the tape. If it'll focus anyway. There we go. Now this next one actually features an actress who was very popular during her childhood years, but didn't really gain too much success as an adult. And that is Bright Eyes, starring Shirley Temple. Unfortunately, what I don't like about a lot of Shirley Temple's movies on video, at least in the late 90s, early 2000s, is that they were often colorized. They aren't presented black and white. Unfortunately, the manufacturer date is very hard to read on this one, but I believe it's printed in 2002, as evident by the trailers. And the final tape being shown for this video, we have a copy of an 80s film starring Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon. That is Bull Durham. What's pretty interesting about this tape is that it's one of those releases that Orion decided to go and record in an EP mode, and with that they would give it a red tape guard and also a red label, or at least the label would be partially red. And this was what they typically did for a lot of their budget releases or reissues of older films. January 12th, 1996. Alright, that'll do it for this second video in the Video Archive VHS Collection series. I plan on breaking out the next part out soon, and I hope to see you guys then. Take care.